Welcome into the Rob Logic podcast. It's been a minute. A lot happened during the Major League Baseball season, including the Texas Rangers being crowned the World Series champions. Now, we will talk about that. I am your host, Rob, joined by my buddy, Ryan, otherwise known as RP. Now, Ryan, like I said, we'll go back and talk about the World Series and the playoffs and all that. But first, I mean, it's been a wild start to the offseason already.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the offseason always starts. You got, guys being not tendered contracts, options being declined. You have guys becoming free agents you didn't necessarily think were going to become free agents. But, of course, the thing that steals all the storylines, I think anyway, is the manager situations. And we already got a nice, juicy story already with Craig Counsell. He's leaving the Brewers. I didn't think it was going to happen. I really didn't. I knew that a lot of teams were going to want to have him as their manager, but, he's a Wisconsin guy. He's just got that Brewer blood in him. I didn't think he was going to leave. He had such a good thing going there, but ends up not only leaving the Brewers, but going to the division rival Cubs. While the Cubs still had David Ross employed, they kicked Ross to the curb. And Craig Counsell, he's running the show now in Chicago, and the Brewers are now looking for their next skipper. And just a kick in the teeth for the Brewers and their fan base, man.
Hey, if I'm Craig Counsell, though, this is the perfect move because I feel like he's been on the hot seat, even though he's been a very, very successful manager. There's always been talks that, hey, maybe this is the year that Counsell gets canned. He's been pooped on by the organization for years. I am glad that he not only got out, but he could have gone to the New York Mets, but instead decides to stay close to home, take that short little drive to the north side. And now, I mean, it's a pretty good situation he's walking into in Chicago. Not only that, but he gets to see the Brewers all those times now throughout the season. And if you're a Milwaukee Brewer fan, this sucks.
Yeah, and he's gonna be tough to replace too. I mean, obviously the players love playing for him. He's royalty in that city. I think it's pretty fair to say that.
And that first domino goes, then we see Ron Washington to the Los Angeles Angels.
Right. Yeah,
awesome to see him back managing again. I mean, really, he should have a World Series by now.
Well, he technically does have one, just not as a manager.
Not as a manager, correct. But we'll see Nelson Cruz on that one back Texas against the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's a game of inches.
Game of inches for sure. And, the Mets, I really feel like they just made a move to make a move as far as the managerial position goes, and signing a guy from the Bronx to come in. And I mean, we'll see how it pans out for him, but I didn't really like the move personally, and I thought it was kind of just almost a gut wrench move by the organization after losing Counsell to Chicago. I thought maybe they could have waited a little bit, especially if they were going to go that direction anyways.
Well, I feel like you also got to think about the reason why there even was a vacancy with the Mets. They fired Buck Showalter, who is really one of the best guys in recent memory to ever do that, to manage a baseball team. So at the end of the day, it's almost like the Mets think that Carlos Mendoza is better than Buck Showalter. Maybe it's not fair to say that. They fired Buck Showalter.
It certainly is not. I don't think so. Time will tell for sure, but definitely don't think so. As for Buck, is he the guy to come in and pick up where Counsell left off in Milwaukee?
I feel like he's got to take a job somewhere. And I mean, the Brewers, they're in a situation where, they're still trying. They're still the best in that division. They're the defending champions of the NL Central. So this isn't the team that's just going to roll over and rebuild for a few years and plug a guy in there and just see what happens. No, they want someone who can immediately come into that clubhouse and manage that team back to the postseason again. But what makes it so hard to replace Counsell is, Counsell knew how to make things work without all the resources. The Milwaukee Brewers are never going to be a team that, signs big name free agents, make high marquee trades. They're just not going to do that. So you kind of have to work with what you got there and make the most of it. And a lot of guys can't do that. But Craig Counsell, just year after year, was able to get the Brewers either into the postseason or get them really close to a playoff berth.
And I know it was a first-round exit for the Brewers, but obviously the Arizona Diamondbacks certainly were going to find some way to get to that World Series just with the way they played, not only in the postseason, but in the second half when things weren't really looking good. That was a team that went out and said, hey, we're still in this thing. We're going to go out, address the closer, go out and get Paul Sewald and then Tommy Pham from the New York Mets. I mean, those two acquisitions really – you look at teams that really won the trade deadline, and it had to be Arizona and then, Texas to an extent by getting Scherzer. He obviously didn't really play too big of a role in the postseason, but, Arizona kind of knocked out the Brewers, and, yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of Brewers always seem to have these pretty high expectations going into the playoffs, and for whatever reason it doesn't work out. I don't know if that's a Craig Counsell thing or – if it's just the fact that playoff is always a crapshoot and you never know who's going to be able to advance and not.
Yeah, and I remember saying going into the playoffs, I wanted to pick a fun team, not a team everybody else was picking, and I was like, oh, the Brewers could be a team that's going to go all the way and win the World Series. Obviously, that aged terribly. That didn't come anywhere close to happening. But I thought they were going to get there because of their pitching. Of course, you got Corbin Burns at the forefront. Still got Freddie Peralta there. Devin Williams at the back end of the bullpen. Thought maybe that was a team that was going to make some noise in the postseason, but no. You can't blame that on Counsell, I think. I think it's more of what you were saying about you just never know with the playoffs.
And all the credit to the Diamondbacks. Look, this team played ball. You talk about the pitching, but what puts the most stress on pitching? Well, it's the speed. It's the contact hitting, and the Diamonds had all that going for them. And, man, I just really love the way that team played baseball. And, it's not necessarily a managerial move as far as somebody leaving and going anywhere, but Torey Lovullo going to stay with the Diamondbacks. They get that extension side. I think that's a match made in heaven for that young core because, quite frankly, that team didn't expect to be where they were at the end of the year. I think everybody thought that this was probably 2 to 3 years away. Well, we knew they had the young core, but really surprised everybody.
Yeah, and that team, for a while there, we weren't even sure if they were going to get into the playoffs. That NL wild card was just insane. And if it wasn't for the Cubs, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they got swept by the Brewers the last series of the year, didn't they?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so their last 6 games, the Cubs, they lost all of them. And if the Cubs just win a couple of those games, they'd probably get that last spot instead of the Diamondbacks.
I know they won the one game. I don't think they got swept in Milwaukee. I know they won one of them. And then I know when we got to the final 162, it didn't matter because the playoffs were signed, sealed, and delivered after the Marlins had taken care of business. They locked up that final spot there in the NL. But because I was at those games in Milwaukee, beautiful stadium. But hey, Brewers fans, y'all didn't deserve Craig Counsell, so bye. You can all log off for the next season because it's gonna.
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
It's gonna be tough to replace that guy. I know we've already talked about it, but as far as the offseason goes, though, you have all the managers. Those are those dominoes that are falling right now. Obviously, teams want those managers in place before the free agent frenzy really kicks off. So, they're going to have some input on what guys they want to bring into the clubhouse and all that good stuff. But some of the moves and the options not getting picked up and everything. There's a lot of talent in this year's free agent class, and obviously the top guy is Shohei Ohtani, but outside of that, Cody Bellinger, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Aaron Nola, there's a lot of talent right there. But then, kind of going down, I look at Sonny Gray, being a Minnesota Twins fan. He's probably not coming back to the team. He's going to be leaving there's a lot of good pitching on the market. And I think this year compared to last year, you have all these arms that they don't have the health issues that we saw everybody kind of taking a chance on those arms last year.
Yeah. And I think maybe we're going to start seeing maybe not as crazy of deals, though, as we saw last offseason. I mean, I don't know. I've been thinking about this free agency a lot, and was thinking about last year and some of these insane contracts that were being handed out. Xander Bogaerts getting 11 years. Trey Turner I think he also got 11 years. I know I'm kind of getting off the topic of pitching a little bit, but I just wanted to talk about.
We got a lot of position players that are free agents this year too. Obviously, it's not going to be the shortstop class that we had last year, but so I mean, go ahead.
And I don't know, man. I know Trey Turner picked it up at the last half of the year, but I mean, Bogaerts pretty underwhelming first season in San Diego. Not terrible, but definitely not playing anywhere what he's getting paid to do. And I think teams are maybe going to start shying away from these bigger deals a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking that, because the contracts get more crazier and crazier as the years go on. But I don't know. I feel like teams got to be looking at these deals and just thinking like, oh.
Well, these players, though, do you need a 10-year deal if the AAV gets up there? I mean, I think we're going to see a lot more of the 4 to 5 year deals that are just the very, very high annual average. And so maybe not necessarily the decade-long deal, but these players, if you can sign a 4 or 5 year deal, cash in twice, and if you're making 50 million plus, because we're going to start entering that territory for a lot of these high-name free agents. Might not be this year, but it's coming with all the TV deals and all that good stuff. So wonder if maybe teams peel back on the years and we see that value kind of go up higher. I mean, we kind of already saw it, right, with Trevor Bauer, the Scherzer deals, and I wonder if that ends up being kind of the way teams go about business, because it is tough to lock into a guy and for a decade. I mean, especially when, we were talking about all those shortstops, like they're going to be 40 when these deals are done.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
they won't be playing shortstop at that point in time.
Oh, no. In fact, I expect them to be DHing at that time.
You would imagine. Trey Turner, I think he obviously got off to a slow start, but certainly proved his worth. And the Twins, they signed Carlos Correa, and he was terrible up until we got to the postseason. So, I mean, something to be said about that. But with some of these deals, I don't know what. I'm really interested to see what Yamamoto out of Japan is going to get, with all the teams wanting, a pitcher of his caliber, just how high teams are going to be willing to go, because I think we are going to look at an astronomical number for that 25-year-old in free agency this year.
Well, and you say how he's 25. That's pretty young for a Japanese player to be coming over here at that age. A lot of times these Japanese players, they come over, they're maybe 28, 29. Some of them have even already turned 30.
Yep.
And so you're getting a guy who, whoever signs Yamamoto would be getting a guy who hasn't really entered his prime yet. Probably his best years might still be in front of him. I consider that prime age to be like 27 to 30, 31, something like that.
And he's dominated Japan ever since he started pitching over there. I mean, the numbers are just absolutely insane. He's got a great pitch mix. And, you know, I get excited about, you know, wherever Yamamoto is going to go, but then also, you know, Sasaki is going to be coming in the near future as well. And that's, you know, another name to really get excited about, just being fans of baseball. But as far as the starting pitching is concerned, though, I mean, Jordan Montgomery, Aaron Nola has been really, really durable over the years. I mean, that's, to me, whoever signs that right-hander, that's a slam dunk, in my opinion. And you're going to be getting a guy that can certainly eat up some innings, and it'll be interesting to see where he winds up going.
Yeah, and one team that I have heard is just constantly being linked to Aaron Nola are the Cardinals. If he doesn't come back to the Phillies, which of course is still a possibility, Phillies would love to have him back.
Yep.
He could be heading to St. Louis, and you know that the Cardinals are looking to add at least a couple starting pitchers. This is not a team that
they could use 5.
I mean,
the one thing that all 30 teams though are looking for is starting pitching, right? I mean, this is what it comes down to every year. All 30 teams are going to be looking at starting pitching, and to me, this is a pretty good free agent class for pitchers, especially, you know, the one name that we haven't really talked about because I kind of said he's in a class of his own. You know, Shohei Ohtani, that's another one. I mean, obviously he's got to have the rehab and everything, but that's, you know, that's a pitcher as well. So there's a lot of arms out there on the market. Marcus Stroman, wonder where he's going to go. You know, he lit the league on fire in the first half, second half, not so much, dealt with some injuries, but he's a veteran guy. And, you know, there's a lot of options as far as pitching goes. And then, as far as the position players are concerned, I thought it was pretty comical to see some of the comments coming out of the Yankees front office for the GM meetings. Brian Cashman looked like a fool, talking about Joey Gallo and Sonny Gray and still believing that the team's pretty good, and then acting like, you know, we have the lowest analytics, and it's like, well, it kind of shows you were 4th in the AL East. Like that's not something to brag about, bud. Like, you say you're pretty good, but it wasn't a good year for the New York Yankees. And then they come out and they say, hey, one of our top guys that we're going to target in free agency is Cody Bellinger. It's like, well, of course, you're the New York Yankees. You target all the free agents. It's just a matter of if you actually sign them or not. So, but, you know, I really don't think that New York would be a very good fit for Cody Bellinger. I know he's a great left-handed slugger, but right now, until the Yankees clean up whatever's going on in the clubhouse and organization, if I'm a free agent, I'm staying as far away from the New York Yankees ahead of this coming year, because I think that's an organization that needs to figure out what the heck they're doing overall, because the philosophy from the top down clearly not where it needs to be, especially when you have Aaron Judge bringing up that, you know, the team needs to put more importance on, you know, things like RBIs and all that stuff. That shouldn't be something coming out of your superstar. So, you know, for Cody, I love watching him play. I don't care where he plays. Just please do not become a New York Yankee, because I don't think that'd be a great spot for him. But I don't know. Money talks. The Yankees, they've always got a lot of it. The other really interesting aspect to this offseason that I was kind of shocked to hear, Philadelphia Phillies in Rhys Hoskins. Sounds like he's probably the odd man out there in Philly, which is kind of crazy. But, Bryce Harper earned that first base job, and obviously Kyle Schwarber is not going to be going anywhere as far as DH. So Rhys Hoskins, I don't know, somebody's going to get that guy, but where do you think would be a good landing spot for old Hoskins?
Well, one team that I've heard, I know I'm sounding like an MLB insider right now. I have no inside information. I'm just going to make that very clear.
Casuals. We're casuals.
Well, this is just teams that
like
I've
baseball
heard floating around out there on social media.
You don't know Jack.
Making their predictions. The one team that I always hear linked to Rhys Hoskins is the team we were talking about earlier, is the Brewers. Brewers, it's worth noting, they're not bringing Rowdy Tellez back. He's a free agent.
Let's get Rowdy. Let's get Rowdy no more.
At least
Counsell is gone, and so is Rowdy.
I believe he's a free agent. If he's not a free agent now, he's probably going to be one because of the non-tender deadline. Yeah, so he's still technically a Brewer now, but I think that's probably going to change once we hit the non-tender deadline. The Brewers are going to non-tender him. That's my guess. And then there you go. There's an opening right there for Rhys Hoskins. And Hoskins is a guy, we know the kind of player he is. He's a fiery, competitive guy. He's going to want to play for a team that's in win now mode, and that's also the Brewers.
Potentially. I think it depends on the manager that comes in, because if they screw up that manager, that's going to really hurt some of the free agents that they are able to target this offseason.
But even if you look away from the whole manager situation, the Brewers are a team that have had a lot of success the past few years, just as far as getting into the playoffs and winning the NL Central.
Yep.
And
also, not to interrupt again, but the Brewers have treated Corbin Burns like trash as well, the same way that they treated Craig Counsell like trash. And Corbin Burns is the top pitcher in that rotation. So that relationship between Corbin Burns and the Brewers has been kind of crazy over the last few years. I mean, it certainly has. And I don't know what Milwaukee is doing from a front office standpoint, because they do always seem to pull the right strings as some of the moves they make and the trade deadline and stuff. But I guess that's the way it is for, some of those smaller market teams. Obviously you're not going to be able to please everybody, and that's just kind of the way it rolls. Those arbitration battles also, I think Major League Baseball as a whole needs to find out a better system, because right now it always seems like the players get real pissed off and the teams kind of stand their ground, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I think that's a big reason why the Braves tried to sign all those guys to those extensions pretty early on. But just going
Got off
back
track though about Hoskins. Yep.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, getting back to the whole Brewers and Hoskins thing, I was just gonna ask, do you see that as being a good fit for Hoskins? I'm not sure if necessarily that's my pick. If you ask me to actually predict where I think he's going to go, I don't know that it's going to be the Brewers. That's just the team that I've heard linked to him the most. A lot of people seem to think that could be where he's going.
I think it could be a good fit, and I'm not going to throw this out there just because I am a Twins fan, but we're going to go down this rabbit hole.
Of course.
So, because, and hear me out, Twins, a lot's been made about the payroll. So they have that really nice payroll last year. They go out to make the moves that they need, finally get that playoff losing streak off their backs this year. Did lose to the Houston Astros, but it's a young team. Now, I do think the Twins need another right-handed bat. They could use some power, and I think first base is one of those spots. Like, there's a reason why the names Goldschmidt and Alonso were getting floated around at the trade deadline in regards to the Minnesota Twins. And with the payroll the way it is, I think Hoskins would be a really good candidate to, you maybe bring him in and see what the Phillies are obviously going to want to get rid of him. And, if you can bring him in and they eat some of that contract, that could be a win-win for both teams, because Phillies get rid of their one extra power hitting first baseman, and the Twins get their right-handed power hitter that they need. And I know maybe it doesn't sound great, but Alex Kirilloff, I could see a team maybe trading him. Larnach, there's a plethora of left-handed hitting options coming out of Minnesota, and I could easily see the team maybe making a move to pick up Ulrich Hoskins. And they're in win now. I mean, it's
yeah,
they need to, and the team has to be very careful about the moves that they make as well, because you are talking about a lower payroll. I don't care what the people say about, well, there's the young core, so they're not paying that much for Julian and this and that, but it's still the team needs to go out and spend some money this offseason, because Gray's not coming back. Probably. And right-handed arms are not cheap. So you are going to have to bite the bullet there. And, having that lower payroll, I mean, maybe it works out for both teams, and maybe that could be a solution. I don't think the Twins are ever a destination free agency wise or trade wise. And then when they do make those moves, everyone's kind of shocked and they're like, oh, the Twins did something this offseason? That's surprising.
Yeah, I don't expect the Twins to be that inactive this offseason. They got the monkey off their back. They won a playoff series, something that hasn't been done in about 20 years. Yes, it's actually been that long.
Unfortunately.
They got to take the next step forward.
They do.
And they also got to stomp on the throats of the other teams in that AL Central division. You can't just be content. Oh, we play in a weak division. We don't have to do that much. We can just coast into the playoffs because we're the best. Nah, man, I want to see a team go for it. And I think the Twins need to do that. I think they need to make every possible effort to re-sign Sonny Gray. I don't know if Gray wants to come back or not, but I want to see some kind of effort from there. Hell, maybe you try to steal Eduardo Rodriguez from the Tigers or something. Maybe he could be a fit with the Twins.
Potentially.
Like you talking about Rhys Hoskins, he can maybe be a
Yamamoto.
Fit.
Make it happen.
Yamamoto, there you go.
Throw all that money out there. I mean, I know the one name getting floated around, and Twins fans did this at the deadline as well. Logan Gilbert. I just don't think the Twins, I don't think fans understand what sort of haul it's going to take to acquire Logan Gilbert. I mean, you're looking at getting rid of 4 starters just to bring in that guy, especially because the team has a lot of control yet for that arm. So I don't think it can be a straight swap of Jorge Polanco for Logan Gilbert. You are going to have to get rid of prospects in a lot in order to bring Logan Gilbert. I mean, the Mariners are not just going to go, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Okay, here's one of our best young arms that we have under control for the next how many years. Like, no, that's not how that's going to work. If the Twins are able to pull that off, they will be giving up a lot, and they do have some depth, which is good. They do have some pieces they can get rid of, and I look at what they did last year, front office wise. The Pablo Lopez trade really scrutinized early on because Luis Arraez is in that chase for 400, but I really think both teams got exactly what they wanted. And when you got to the postseason for the Twins, I mean, look, Pablo Lopez is a big reason in why that playoff streak is done. So the losing streak. So as a Twins fan, I want to see him go for it. Logan Gilbert would be cool. But I'm also realistic in the sense that I understand if the Twins acquire Gilbert, I assume there's going to be a lot heading out west in some sort of a package deal, because there's no way that the Mariners are just going to expect one pro position everyday player for that arm.
No, it would take a pretty gigantic haul to pry Logan Gilbert loose from the Mariners. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't see Logan Gilbert going anywhere. People have been trying to throw him in trade rumors for about a year now. I just don't see it. I get the Mariners have just loads and loads of young starting pitching. I mean, Logan Gilbert and George Kirby, of course, are the guys everybody knows. But then you've also got like Brian Wu. You got Emerson Hancock.
There's a lot.
I'm sure I'm probably forgetting a couple other guys.
They've done a really good job with
Bryce Miller. There's another one.
Yep.
List goes on and on.
You know what I would love to see, though? Like San Diego Padres, straight swap Juan Soto for Logan Gilbert. I mean, Padres are losing Blake Snell. Like, let's see it. I mean, Rodriguez and Soto on the same team, that would be fun to watch.
Yeah, it would. It probably would take a little bit more than that. I only say that though because Soto is still slated to be a free agent after the 24 season.
True,
but I don't know. Never say never. We've seen crazier things happen.
I also feel like the Padres are one of those organizations dumb enough to actually overpay for Gilbert. But
yeah, Padres are one of the teams that just make moves for the sake of making moves.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you've got probably 5 teams that, if the Mariners want to have the price really, really high, there's probably only 5 teams, give or take a couple here or there, that'll actually be like, hey, yeah. We will give you everything to bring in that one arm and completely hinder some of the development. But no, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. And I know we were talking about managerial moves and stuff over the offseason, but Bob Melvin going to the San Francisco Giants, that was something that happened. Don't have too many thoughts on it because I know Bob Melvin gets a ton of respect across the league, but I just don't know. That he's better than Gabe Kapler. Like, if you're the San Francisco Giants, what are you doing? That team shouldn't have even been in the competition for a playoff spot for as long as they were this last year. And when Kapler's given all these different positions that he is forced to platoon, because I do feel as though San Francisco is one of the spots where analytics have taken over way, 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 way too much, where, I mean, it's just so hard you can't platoon all these positions, but by God, the San Francisco Giants are going to try. I don't know how well it's going to work for Bob Melvin in San Francisco. I have a tough time with a team getting rid of Gabe Kapler, who's not that far removed from winning 107 games with that team. And now you bring in a guy that couldn't make it work in San Diego with one of the most talented rosters in all of baseball. I don't know. That's interesting.
You know what I honestly think the problem with the Padres was last year? I think you've seriously got too many egos running around in that clubhouse. Everybody's trying to outshine everyone else. And I think there was a little bit of a troubled clubhouse. And I'm a big believer in team chemistry, man. And if your clubhouse isn't clicking, it's going to show on the field. Teams that are not really in sync with each other in the clubhouse are not going to play good baseball. I don't care what names are in the lineup cards every day. I don't care what names are being announced as starting pitchers. It's not going to work. And we've seen it time and time again with teams who, quote unquote, win the offseason and they go out and they struggle the next year. And everybody wonders, oh, well, why is it not working? Why is it not working? Because it never works. And I think it's because
it does work though. Yeah. Sometimes. Because see here, I do think that
most of the time
the manager is a huge part of it, right? Because I look at the Phillies, kind of, I mean, they've definitely developed talent better than San Diego Padres, but kind of similar. Rob Thompson, guy for all those egos, right?
I think.
And look at the Texas Rangers. They go out and spend all that money last year. What did it amount to? That team was terrible. But then you bring in Bruce Bochy, and all of a sudden, you mean to tell me that this team wins the World Series? Like, I think if the Padres just get that managerial, some guy that can come in there and, they're a team that, just like the Rangers last year, they were the team this year that lost all those one-run ball games. Their record was very, very poor. So I really think that I don't necessarily know that it's the egos. I think that's an easy excuse for Bob Melvin fans. I think Bob Melvin does better with teams that have younger players, and he's developing them as compared to teams with the superstars. And I think the Padres need a Bruce Bochy type manager to come in. Like, I think the Padres missed out on their guy. I think Ron Washington would have been the perfect dude to come in there to San Diego. And I just feel like you would have everybody buy in that culture. All of a sudden, that team learns how to win with all those names right there, because it just didn't really feel like Melvin had control of the team. And I don't know that he really wanted to take it, because him and Preller had the whole feud going on that's, kind of been talked about a little bit. So I just think really that, if the Padres just got the manager correct, I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but, Tingler wasn't the right fit there either. I just wonder, had Bruce Bochy say, like, let's just imagine for a second, if Bruce Bochy was managing the Padres this year, does that team win the World Series? They might.
Yeah, it's really hard to say.
We'll never know, but
I guess we'll never know.
Because, Bochy obviously goes to Texas and everything, but I do think, not to totally disregard your point, because I do agree with you, but I think if you do have, kind of what you were talking about, I think all of that can be harnessed as long as you have the right guy leading that ship.
Yeah,
you can't have those players control the locker room,
I think different guys are definitely better at handling clubhouses that have star-studded names everywhere.
Yeah.
But
see, I'd love to see Tito manage the San Diego Padres. Like, no joke. I think,
of course, it probably won't happen, but
100% it won't. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, the way that he handled those teams out there in Boston, I mean, you give that guy some talent. I mean, you look at what he did in Cleveland with nobody. I mean, but that's a guy that's shown he can manage. He can, bring guys up. He can manage the stars. He can really do it all. And, Francona and Bochy, to me, are just like two very rare managers that you just don't see a whole lot of coming around.
Yeah, but I just kind of want to get back to Bob Melvin for a second here.
Go for it.
I actually think he could work out pretty well with the Giants. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, you look at some of those A's teams that he managed. I want to specifically talk about like the 2012 and 2013 A's. This was a team that had, of course, they had Josh Donaldson, a budding superstar at that time. But look at some of these other
Bringer
names.
of Rain. Jed Lowry.
Jed Lowry, yeah. They had Brandon
Was
Moss.
Sam Fuld part of that team too?
I think he was on one of those teams. He might have been like 13 or 14, somewhere in there.
Coco Chris might have still been playing.
Yeah, Coco Crisp. Derek Norris was their catcher. And these are not
Why am I
high
blanking on his name?
marquee names.
The lefty, who was the Mr. Perfect, big beard.
Dallas Braden.
Dallas Braden. There we go. I don't know why I was drawing a blank on his name, but I was like, I know it was right there on the tip of my tongue the whole time.
But yeah, I think Melvin just works with teams that don't necessarily have all these big names, but they are just good enough that he can make some sort of magic happen.
And that is, I mean, I did kind of allude to that too, that, I think he does better with the teams that, have the younger players that they're relying on, maybe some of so he probably is the right guy to have that, kind of the analytical approach. And he's going to get the most out of those guys, but I just don't think it was probably the best fit in San Diego. And if you're the Padres, I mean, obviously he's a big name, but it just probably not the best to, I don't know. It was, I just never thought that was going to be a really good match from the beginning. And it just seemed like it never really got better either. So Bob Melvin needs a little bit of Bruce Bochy in him, just to kind of.
Oh, everybody needs a little Bruce Bochy in them.
That's true. I mean, but if we look at the managers though out there in the NL West, is Bob Melvin's? No, just kidding. I forgot that the Colorado Rockies still exist.
Yeah, the Rockies, man.
Rockies. Yeah,
they're repping the Rockies for some reason.
I don't
today.
know. And I mean, if you're the Dodgers, something's got to change this offseason. Because if they don't sign Ohtani, I don't know where that team goes. I mean, I don't know how they can rely on Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts to carry the load. It's going to have to come from somewhere else. And I don't know what they're going to do with that pitching staff either, because I'm surprised they won as many games as they did in the regular season this year, all things considered, but I don't know how they keep going and playing like this.
Well, hell, dude. I mean, Betts and Freeman, they're not getting any younger either.
That too. I mean, is Gavin Lux the real deal? I mean, we don't know because he didn't play. He's coming back from injury. That's a giant question mark for a team that doesn't need any more question marks. And you got all of these really, really nice years out of the Jason Haywards and the David Peraltas and the JD Martinez. How do you go about getting that same sort of production from guys like that each year? I don't know. I don't think that's something that, if I'm a GM, I don't sit there and go, yeah, I think Hayward's going to do exactly what he did in 2023 and 2024. I don't know. They had a lot of guys that played really, really well that were veterans, but I don't know that you can count it because all those guys too, 1 year older. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they turn from here. It certainly looks like from last offseason, they had a pretty quiet offseason. We all thought, they're just gearing up for Ohtani. But that's the problem. There's no guarantee that they are going to sign Ohtani. So if they don't, then it's like, okay, well, now what do we do? I honestly don't know where they turn. I don't know what direction
there is some steam picking up on Shohei Ohtani to the north side with Craig Counsell and company. I mean, hey, if they're able to replace Cody Bellinger with Shohei Ohtani, as far as the bat is concerned, I don't think anybody's complaining. And I mean, basically, you replaced Cody Bellinger and Marcus Stroman with one player.
You would.
Like, I mean, seriously, it almost makes too much sense for Ohtani to go to the Cubs. They've got the pocketbooks for it. I don't know if he wants to play in the Midwest, but certainly Craig Counsell has the track record as far as a team that consistently gets, he's going to lead a team to the playoffs. Like, that's what he's done his entire career. So if you're Shohei Ohtani, you've consistently not made the playoffs with the Los Angeles Angels, a team that, the Dodgers, it looks like they aren't quite as strong as they've been in the past from a personnel standpoint. So I don't know if maybe Shohei does end up going to the Midwest in Chicago, because I think I've always thought that Seattle was kind of a dark horse to sign Ohtani, but the Mariners didn't make the playoffs this year. Like, the Cubs didn't, but I like Craig Counsell, and I wonder if that's where we end up seeing Mr. Ohtani signed to.
Well, I think the top priority for Ohtani, more than location, is are they a winner? Are they going to get into the playoffs with regularity? I think that's what he's going to be looking at, because he has a grand total of 0, count them, 0 playoff appearances. And everybody knows he's too good to be missing the playoffs every year. You want to see the best players in the league playing in the playoffs.
Well, and I really do. I don't know. I do like the Cubs' chances moving forward, especially with Counsell. And this kind of leads to the next topic that I did want to talk about, and we'll close it out with this, is we saw what Bochy was able to do this year one with the Texas Rangers. Lead that team to a World Series championship, the first one in team history. What manager that's coming into a new spot has the best chance to be just like Bochy and win that World Series in year one as manager?
Oh boy. I think out of all the guys that have changed hands and new guys that are going elsewhere, as much as I would love to say Ron Washington, the Angels just don't have what it takes.
Whoa.
To get there.
Hey. All right. That's fair. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm not going to dump on Ron Washington, though. So
no, it's not any fault of Ron Washington. I'm faulting who's on the Angels roster right now.
That's fair.
It's not Carlos Mendoza, obviously, with the Mets.
Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets.
I think the team that's got the best shot is Counsell and the Cubs. It's that good combination of a great leader, great manager, and a team that has the roster put together that can get it done. Out of the teams that have a new manager this offseason, they have the best chance on repeating what the Rangers did last year.
Okay. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I don't think there's
Again,
I really want to say Ron. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and since you went Counsell, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole. I'm gonna talk about Ron Washington, because here's the thing: if Ron Washington gets a healthy Mike Trout, that's a big if, because last couple of years have been rough for old Mike. But if he gets a healthy Mike Trout, I am really buying into the Los Angeles Angels stock. And I know that sounds crazy, but the thing that I love about the Angels that we haven't seen in years past is I feel like they actually have a stable of young stars coming up, similar to what we saw in Arizona. I'm a huge Neto fan. Like, I think Mr. Magneto, like, that I think he's going to be a superstar. I really do. I don't think enough people in baseball know of him just because A, he played on the Angels, and B, he's not Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani. But they've got some guys out there. The only thing that I kind of question is they, from a front office standpoint, what they did at the trade deadline really hurt a little bit of what they were building with some of those. Like, I just don't understand bringing in all those guys just to get DFA them. Like, it was just, I don't know. But I do like the prospects and kind of where the Angels are going. I don't know if we'll ever see Anthony Rendon be the player that he once was, but certainly if he is healthy and plays to the capabilities that we have seen in the past, if you have Trout, if you have Rendon, I mean, these are a lot of ifs I'm talking about, so I do realize that. Neto's star, Noah came up, played really, really well, all things considered. He was drafted last year. I mean, they have some pieces. I don't know if they're going to be able to pitch, but I do love Ron Washington, and I think that, for all those young guys, maybe it's not this year, but I could see Washington kind of having a Lovello-esque effect. And I know that we were talking about who's going to be the Bruce Bochy, but I'm going to flip it. I'm going to talk about, because Washington, I think, can be the Lovello that the Angels need to, turn that thing around. And the nice thing is for Washington, it's not a long deal. And for the Angels, it's not a long deal. So if it doesn't work, well, just blow it up. You're the Angels. You know how to blow things up. That's all you've been doing for quite some time now. So I don't know, but I really, really like it, because I think this is the first managerial move that the Angels have made where I can actually look at it and go, oh, I see what they're doing. Like, I didn't understand Madden. I didn't understand Nevin. This is something, to me, that makes a lot of sense. And the Angels have made a lot of moves that have not made a whole lot of sense over the last decade.
Nope. And I do want to talk about what they did at the trade deadline. I think that was just because they were just trying to make one last effort to try to sneak into the playoffs with Ohtani under contract. But of course, that blew up in their face, as it always seems to. For the Angels,
I think, given the situation, regardless of if that's what they're trying to do, I still think that is terrible, terrible business. From the standpoint of, you could go to the playoffs. Ohtani still could walk. You didn't sign him to an extension. So what are we doing? I don't know. You knew that team wasn't really, even if they snuck into the playoffs, I don't think they're winning any series, but you never know, because that's kind of been the way things have worked. Obviously the Diamondbacks snuck in and they go on that tear, but yeah, I don't know. I really like this move for the Angels, though, and I think they've got some young pieces to really build around. And this is going to sound crazy, but if I am that team, I strongly consider trading Mike Trout. If he's okay with it, I say you trade Mike Trout and you go and get some pitching, because you'll be able to get some quality pitching for Mike Trout. You'll be able to get whatever you want if you're trading Mike Trout.
Yeah, somebody will give you the sun and the moon for that.
Yeah, regardless of the injuries, I think there's enough teams that still know that Trout is one of the best players the game's ever seen, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams that would jump at the opportunity to bring Trout to their ball club. So another thing to keep in mind, if you're the Angels front office, I'd like to see them, don't miss out. If you can trade Trout now, if that's what helps your team win, I say do it. You missed out on trading Ohtani. We saw how that worked out. I really think they could have gotten a haul for Ohtani, and I think they could have gotten a haul for Trout too. So I say don't miss out on the latter at this point.
Yeah, the only thing I do worry about with trying to trade Trout is the fact that, he is on the wrong side of 30 now. He's had the injury issues. He's got the huge contract. That's not always the easiest to move, but I don't know, maybe I think the Angels will probably be a little more willing to take on some of that contract just for the sake of the return they might get for him. And I think they still could. I mean, it's Mike Trout. Somebody is going to give the Angels what they're looking for.
And I know it's not the same situation, but I mean, look, we saw Cody Bellinger deal with some injuries the last couple years, and then all of a sudden, when he's on a free agent 1-year deal with the Chicago Cubs, he magically puts together this crazy season, and all those ailing injuries of the past just disappear. Maybe for Mike Trout, the best thing is just change of scenery, and he's an East Coast guy. I mean, if you're the Yankees, do you have an outfield of Trout, Bellinger, and Judge?
Can you imagine?
With Dominguez altering in, and then one of those three DHing, and place would go crazy. Man.
That's a Yankees fan's dream right there.
Don't need analytics when you go out and spend money. That's the Cashman way. Should be fired, but
they're pretty damn good, I hear.
I mean, between that quote and whatever gibberish was coming out of Matt Eberflus's mouth earlier this week when talking about Justin Fields, I don't know which one was worse because they were both pretty bad. You had Eberflus talking about Justin Fields as, he's doubtful. He's working through the things. And then guys like, yeah, so he's not playing, right? No, he's not going to be playing Thursday night. Wait, but you said he was doubtful. Well, it's a 51% chance. What? Between that and then Cashman going on this tirade and getting into it, like defending Anthony Volpe of all people, like I don't know. That was some bonkers press conferences over the last week, but I don't know. It's gonna be a fun offseason because a lot of I think too. You're going to see this year teams really, really buy into a little bit more of the small ball approach. So we're going to see guys with the higher batting averages, guys that can steal. They're going to be at a premium this offseason is kind of my thoughts as we gear up for free agency. And I think you'll see more of that with some of the moves. I mean, it obviously paid off with, Luis Ariz going to the Miami Marlins. He had a great year. He's a contact guy and whatnot, and that's a team that kind of embraced small ball as well. I think, more guys like him will come at they'll be a lot more valued than in recent years for sure.
Well, I think especially after seeing the run the Diamondbacks got on too, that kind of stuff just works. And
except for when it doesn't. The Rangers there scored like all their runs via the home run, but Bochy though, I will give credit. They do play small ball to an extent. I mean, just happens they have the guys that just mash home runs quite a bit, so didn't really need it at all. And I also think Bochy too, we don't see a lot of small ball. We see a lot of over managing when it comes to pitching staffs. And then you look at Bruce Bochy, he handled it perfectly again. Like the dude just pulls all the right strings when it comes to a bullpen, pitching staff, the way that he handles it. And I mean, nobody should ever question that guy at this point.
No. I just think it's incredible how he comes out of retirement, first year with the Rangers, and wins the World Series.
Well, can you imagine 90% of managers in Major League Baseball would have pulled Eovaldi after the second time he gets into trouble, yeah,
he just
early in that game, and he stuck with him and he got all the innings out of him, and then he goes to his bullpen and his bullpen isn't taxed. And I think right there you see exactly why Dave Roberts only has one World Series championship with the Dodgers. Because in the one World Series that he won, Kevin Cash managed to out Dave Roberts. And that's what decided the World Series at the end of the day. I don't want to hear what anybody else has to say, but like managing those pitching staffs is so important when you get to the postseason. And when you have some of these teams that have all the talent in the world, but just can't seem to make it work, I always look at, well, how was the pitching staff and bullpen managed? Because if you look at that, that usually will tell you everything that you need to know as to why they got knocked out early. So
offense wins games, pitching wins championships is what they always say.
that's right. You got that World Series champions Atlanta Braves banner there behind you.
Yep. One day it'll happen again. I just don't know how soon.
Might need to fix some of that pitching.
That's what I keep saying.
But and they exercised the option on Morton, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
That's a bold move. That is a real bold move. But we'll see. We'll see how it works out for the Braves. I mean,
I don't hate it, but I don't love it either.
Yeah, I mean, you can never have enough pitching. That's always what I say. And would he be a candidate to come out of the pen potentially?
I don't know about that. I think Morton's got to be your number 4 at the highest. Because as it stands right now, he's probably the number 3. That's too high. I think the Braves will get a starting pitcher this offseason. I don't know how they're going to go about doing that. They're going to sign somebody or try to make a trade for somebody. I mean, their farm system's very thin now after the trades for Olsen and Murphy. So I don't know what the hell they could possibly trade for a good number 3 guy. But there's plenty of guys out there in free agency. I personally think Jordan Montgomery would be a great fit for the Braves.
False.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you mean false?
Wrong. If I'm the Braves, I want Aaron Nola. I'm not settling for Jordan Montgomery.
I would be fine with Aaron Nola. They need a third starting pitcher.
The thing that worries me, I don't know, to me, like, and maybe I think too highly of Aaron Nola, but like Blake Snell being out there, that's a great name. That's a cool name. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to emulate the season that he had in San Diego, especially if he doesn't have Gary Sanchez catching him. Like, I mean, all of his numbers were Cy Young worthy after the dads brought in Scary Gary. So I don't know. I don't know if I trust Blake Snell. He's also another guy that he's just so hit or miss. Like, I don't know. I feel like I would have to be a team that has a lot of starting pitching depth. And then, you kind of add him like the Rangers. They'd be like, oh, hey, Blake Snell, you come down here. Come to Texas. We'll take you. We got DeGrom.
I think the Rangers could be making another big signing this offseason. A lot of people seem to think,
why not?
They're going to go after Josh Hader for the bullpen and be successful in getting him.
I could see that. But I don't know. I think Hader's going to go to a team like the Braves.
All you do?
I'm not saying that he's going to go to the Braves, but I just think that he's going to go to a team like the Braves. So I don't know that he's also one of those guys. I mean, I hate to say it, but I just don't think he's going to leave the National League. I mean, that sounds so stupid, but there are some guys that just don't leave the National League, and I think he's
a division.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think he's one of those guys that we'll see. I think the Rangers have something else up their sleeve for the back end of that pen. So
I mean,
Yeah,
they're
I
the
guess
defending
we'll
world
see.
champs. They're going to do something. It's just a matter of what.
Everybody will want to sign
playoffs.
there. Yeah. I mean, we will see. See, real quick before we wrap this up, this is a way too early prediction, but who are some candidates for comeback player of the year for next year?
Well, I think some of the obvious ones are guys that have
Walker, Bueller, Dodgers, strikeout, Walker.
Well, I was going to say guys that missed the entire season. So guys like Walker Bueller or Rhys Hoskins or Edwin Diaz. Probably not Diaz because Closer's probably not going to win it. But
hey,
if
there's your
Liam
answer.
Hendricks,
There's your answer for Bochy.
what
Hello,
now?
New York Mets. We'd like to make a trade.
Oh,
Edwin Diaz, come on down to Texas.
I was going to say, even though relievers probably don't win that award very often,
Hendricks got it this year.
he got it for this year?
Yes.
Even though he didn't really pitch that much?
Correct. I mean, he did battle cancer, so I don't know why you're questioning it.
Well, it's usually given to guys who come back and have like a great year after some catastrophic thing happened to them.
Usually they do, before. But I'm pretty sure they gave. Let me see here. Pretty sure I saw that he got the. Maybe I completely made that up.
Because wouldn't Carlos Carrasco have gotten that award too? Because I know he had I can't remember what kind of cancer it was, but I know he battled cancer.
Yeah. So Liam Hendricks won AL Comeback Player of the Year award this year.
Well, all right. So he probably, because I know he had the injury at the end of the season. Could he be the first guy to win back-to-back Comeback Players of the Year?
True. I don't know what time he's coming back next year though, because he's got Tommy John, right? So he's gonna be.
Yeah, he's probably
he's probably out all of next year if I had to guess. But unfortunately
for Tommy John, I know he had Tommy John.
Pretty sure he did. Let's see. Well, I was right about him winning the award. I'm pretty sure he had Tommy John.
Because, if he had Tommy John, he's not coming back at all next year.
Yeah, Liam Hendricks, legendary twin. Yeah, he had Tommy John surgery like back in August. So he's done for next year at least. Maybe 2025. Liam Hendricks, comeback player of the year for the Texas Rangers. Because the White Sox are not exercising their option on Hendricks, so he is a free agent. So
I could see a team maybe doing one of those 2-year deals for him. Because they know he's
getting up there in age.
Yeah, I know. But teams have done that before.
True. And Tommy John, I mean, some guys get a second wind at their career, so you could definitely see that. But for next year, I like Walker Bueller. I think the team was smart not to rush him back for the playoffs. I think there's a lot of other organizations that would have probably sacrificed his health to get him there. And I know some people will hate that take, but I think that was the right call holding him out, especially coming off Tommy John. No reason to put him, because the reality is when you get into that postseason time, those guys need no innings or pitch restrictions. You got to be able to empty the tank, and if he can't do that, you can't have him in there, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to manage, because the last thing you want to do is rush a guy back and you push him too hard and hurts himself even more. I mean, that could jeopardize somebody's career if you play around with it too much. So you really got to be careful.
My dark horse for comeback player of the year next year, Joey Gallo.
Joey Gallo.
He's going to come back. He's
with some unknown team.
40 home runs for like the Mariners or somebody. It'll be a team like that. I'm telling you. That's who he's going to like sign with probably. It'll be some random team like that. And then he's just going to mash his next year. On that note, that is the Rob Logic podcast. You can tell why it's
we're gonna leave you with that Joey Gallo.
You understand now why it is called the Rob Logic podcast, because that's the logic we use. It doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always have to make sense, but that's why it's called that. But thanks RP for joining the show, and we'll do this a little bit more often here in the off season. You know, nothing else to do. You know, we got over 100 days before pitchers and catchers report, so we're gonna have some spicy winter meetings. I'm telling you, I'm here for it.
Last year's was great. We had a great last year.
I cannot wait to see what this year's looks like, and I think there's going to be a lot more news coming out just in the next week. I mean, we saw Dombrowski go with the whole Hoskins, bombshell. I think we're going to see a lot more of that coming up here in the next week. I like it when the GMs get like, please, Cashman, keep talking. I love it. Okay. Do everyone a favor. Keep talking. It's great to make fun of the Yankees. Haven't been able to do that a lot in the past, but we will laugh at the demise of New York. And with that note, goodbye. I bid you adieu.
Until next time.
Probably.